gonna play football. Yippee!
People think that the worst sight in UConn athletics is the Rentschler Field scoreboard and all those empty seats.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
The CFB on OSG with your host, the Online Sports Guys.
Thank you, Tommy Palmer. As always, it's time for the review. The OSG on CFB. CFB with OSG, Choice D, all the above. Take your pick. It is, in this particular segment of the show, at OSG Phil and at OSG Nelson, covering a school that I don't think we necessarily would have ever thought would take up an entire A block of material. And for it, we go to Storrs.
Yeah, unless we're talking about the worst college football teams in all the land.
True.
We're talking about the UConn Huskies, who made it public this week that they plan on moving most of their athletic programs back to where they started, ironically, from the AAC to the Big East.
Yeah, get back, Loretta.
Uh-huh, exactly. And which begs a whole host of questions, none more important probably than what does this mean for the football program due to the fact that the Big East isn't a football conference.
Yes, a bit of an issue. All right, so let's take a peek at things here. I guess the first thing to look at is the TV contract. And you have the AAC giving schools about $7 million a year with their new deal with the 4-letter. And it was an instant concern for UConn because of their linear deal that they have with SNY. And it was, we say, yeah, go ahead.
What makes it even bigger is the fact that according to conference bylaws, the move itself is going to cost a flat $10 million.
Yeah. And those have been negotiated in the past, exit fees, and they have gone to court in some instances. So for a university that registered a $41 million deficit last year with athletics, most of that being football, you got a lot of financial questions, first and foremost, that have to be answered. And the AAC wants nothing to do with a football-only school in UConn. So UConn's going to have to find a home, try to figure out a way to make up for the financial, for the lack of a financial contract that they would have with anybody. But what could be bad-ish for ESPN could really be good for Fox with the other sports, because it finally gives Fox a way to show UConn women's hoops as a part of their programming. But back to football, it's a lot of financial questions first and foremost for UConn.
Yeah, when you're talking about a program that's already deeply in the red, I get what they're trying to do in the long-term big picture of things. They clearly don't have the budget and the resources at this point to play at the same level of the other schools within their conference, and definitely not enough if the AAC ever makes a step up to be a Power 5 conference. This gives them that out. However, it's going to be really hard to recoup the revenue that they're losing. That all being said, you got to figure in their costs for a whole variety of things probably will go down as this deal works its way out. But the problem is they still don't have a home for the football program.
No.
They did go on record today as saying that we still plan on being a viable football bowl subdivision school, whatever that might mean.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means what conference that would suit them at this point in time. I mean,
the MAC?
The MAC. Since they've got UMass, it would make some sense logistically. But I also don't necessarily see this setting off a whole spate of conference roulette or conference juggling at this, as you will, with teams bouncing around. But that being said, somebody's going to end up taking that AAC spot. The question is who?
Right. So the MAC had UMass because UMass was so bad, they booted them out. And now you have UConn in play, but an odd number of schools in the AAC. And now the idea of trying to figure out what school do you cherry pick? Do you try to pick an independent? Do you try to grab Army? My answer to that would be no, because Army has seen what Navy has gotten into by going into conference play, and it has really pulled them back when it comes to the success of their program under Coach Ken. I think that right now, because of the linear deal that they want with SNY, and we're talking about the 2020 season and beyond, because you've got to purge your schedule and you've got to figure out who you are. I think right now it's going to be one of two things, possibly one of three, if you believe in black helicopters and doomsday scenarios. One, you go and find, yeah, exactly. One, you go and find another conference. Geographically, to me, that means the MAC. Two, you go on as an independent, and because of where you are, you could probably schedule who you want. It makes it a little easier to try to pick, you might be scheduling the other independents as a part of your deal for most.
Yeah, but there aren't enough of those to even fill out a full season.
Right, which lends me to option C, which is the Idaho variant. And we saw the success or lack thereof that Idaho was having on the Division I level, and they retreated to the FCS, and they're now back in the Big Sky, and they're going up against the Montanas, and that way their geographic footprint is figured out, and it's easier to schedule because you're not spending as much money, you're with your geographic rivals, and you're locked in. So for me, it's one of three things. And four, you just disband the program altogether and save the 41 million or the $8.5 million that you were in a deficit in last year. So that's your black helicopter theory, and it was number four. So it's the MAC, it's an independent, it's 1AA, or it's blow it up altogether.
Well, and it's just weird that we're even in this conversation due to the fact that we're talking about a program that less than 10 years ago was playing in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
Although they are a case study in the whole flaws of the college bowl system itself, in that it cost them more money to play in the Fiesta Bowl than they actually made. But that's another story for another day.
Right.
But you're talking about a program that's not that far removed from being successful at the highest levels. And now we're talking about being relegated, or although they are insistent, they are adamant that they're not going to do that.
True.
But you're talking about a limited amount of options. I mean, when most of your smaller power conferences that aren't in the Power Five, you're talking about Conference USA, which is an option for them, but it doesn't help them in basketball. And really outside of that, you've got the Sun Belt and the Mountain West, none of which are really particularly a good fit.
No, geographically, no. And I mean, for me, it's going to have to be for geography. It would be the MAC. If you want to take the dive financially, right now you're looking at being team 15 in Conference USA, and unless they can bring somebody else in to make it 16, that's not going to happen.
No, and the basketball component alone would keep that from happening.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Confucia would take anything other than a both.
Yeah.
Or neither.
Yeah. And when you look at the MAC geographically, it's a 12-team conference. And so once again, you're back to an even number, and someone who's going to try to shoehorn themselves in, the MAC would have to want them for football only, which really doesn't happen, because if you look at the MAC, it's Akron, Bowling Green, Buffalo, Kent, Miami, Ohio U, Ball State, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Northern Illinois, Toledo, Western Michigan. All of them are basketball schools. All of them are in the MAC. So for me, it would be a conference that would have to want to have some kind of realignment where you're adding two teams, with one of them being UConn, and you'd have to have an eye on that second partner, and then trying to rejigger things in the Go 5 with whatever conference you're aligning yourself with. And in talking this through with you, it seems like that first option of joining a regional conference is out the door, and you're looking at options 2, 3, and 4 now.
Mm-hmm. Somebody else would have to be basically a dance partner, like you said, in order for it to work just about anywhere.
Yeah.
And maybe they do end up going independent in football. Basketball seems to be what their bread and butter, or at least what they're banking themselves on. And maybe that is the way they end up having to go if they're that adamant about staying in the FBS, is that they become an independent and they just pick up games as they can. And they play basketball in the Big East. They play baseball in the Big East. And all the other sports are in the Big East, and they get that revenue coming in. And you see where football goes. It's just kind of sad to see that they've gone from where they were to where they are in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and you had head coaches like, Edsel leaves. Then you bring in Paul Pasqualoni and Bob Diaco. And you see, yeah, and that's exactly right. And you see where the program is right now. So, what has it been like for the week of the Travelers Golf Tournament in the PGA, where everyone in the Northeast is just locked in on Cromwell, Connecticut? So, you're covering a golf tournament, and football news breaks out. Here's what it's like for our friends at WTNH TV.
Reporter in our state is out here in Cromwell covering the golf tournament, of course, right? And then, as you mentioned, some breaking news about UConn. In between covering shots, every reporter in our state also working the phones, trying to find a possible connection between UConn and going back to the Big East. Sources we spoke with in the athletic department believe this move will happen, but obviously there are a lot of moving parts. John Pearson spoke with former UConn basketball coach Jim Calhoun. He said this is a great move for basketball and the idea of rekindling old rivalries in the league. However, what will happen with football? We'll just have to wait and see how the chips fall in the next couple years.
Yeah, breaking news for one thing, and then something else happens. You have your entire week planned. You and I have done this before, where you end up with, I don't know. We're covering whatever regional big ticket item we're at.
Yeah, you throw all your resources into one basket only to have something else break out.
And that was the genesis of the piece that I saw up in New Haven, Connecticut. So let's just say it was an adventure for them, having to cover the biggest element in the Northeast in the state of Connecticut, and then having that happen. So it was a bit of an adventure for them. What does your gut tell you? I mean, we've talked about the four main options, and we kind of have talked ourselves out of number one.
Yeah.
Does your gut have anything?
It does, but it's not college football.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope yes,
that's a whole separate conversation.
You've had lunch, yes.
I think what I just talked about with them ending up going independent may be the only way that they could make this work.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just not a natural fit anywhere. Nobody really has that odd team out that's even remotely close to UConn that would make them fit. I mean, you could arguably try to shoehorn them into the MAC, but the MAC, they would need the MAC a lot more than the MAC would need them.
Yeah, even numbers in a basketball conference, so you're fine with both Conference USA and with the Mid-American Conference at this point.
Right. And what conference trying to be viable and survive in this world wants to take on somebody from one sport only?
Yeah.
The only example that I could think of that even works for that was Notre Dame telling the ACC, okay, we'll join you, but we're not going to join you in everything. And they're Notre Dame, so they could do that.
Yes.
UConn's in a completely different situation. And the basketball thing fits, the baseball thing fits, everything fits for them except, oh my God, I got a football program. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was part of the plan. Maybe it was never thought of, or maybe there was just hope that somebody would jump up and say, oh, come play with us. But yeah, outside of going to the football championship series and finding the Patriot League or the Horizon League or something like that, outside of that, you don't have a whole lot of options there. If you're UConn, you don't have any big chip that you can lay out on the table and say, I'm all in.
Yeah, and for let's take the FCS element here for a second. Having scanned quickly, if you're not going to get UConn basketball as a part of it, you've got to want to just have the football team for cachet stroke or any kind of howdy do. So the Patriot League has 7 teams, but you're not getting UConn basketball. So I think that's an out. I think that's not going to happen. The Northeast Conference, Duquesne, Sacred Heart, Central Connecticut, Wagner, Bryant, St. Francis, Robert Morris. At 7 teams, you get UConn football. It takes you to 8. I don't think that the Northeast would have any kind of preconceived notion about, let's get UConn basketball as a part of this. So I don't think that's going to happen. Then you look at the Colonial, and the Colonial right now is 12 teams. I don't see them budging, period, one way or the other. And that would have been the one that I would have thought might have been the one to look at. But the other one, really, if you're looking for a dance partner, when it comes to football and the FCS, the Big South Conference. Exactly. Here we go. The Big South doesn't have the basketball component. Kennesaw, Monmouth, Charleston Southern, Gardner-Webb, Campbell, Hampton, North Alabama Presbyterian. It's shaping itself to be a bit of a southeastern football conference, but in the past it has had other schools in it in basketball, like NJIT and things like that. So if you have UConn go in, you have UConn and Monmouth already. So you end up with a dance partner up in the north in New Jersey to help you out there for travel. And as long as you figure everything out.
Yeah, but it comes down to the basketball part. Are they going to make them play? How do you justify just jumping in for football only?
Because they don't have a basketball conference.
All those schools have basketball teams, though.
But they play in other places.
Ah.
I mean,
silly me, I should know that. I'm supposed to be a college sports expert, aren't I?
North Alabama, I think they're working their way up into FCS. Hampton, as a basketball school, plays in the MEAC, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So Campbell is Brother J-Dub should help us out here, but Campbell is a basketball school somewhere close. But I think that Kennesaw plays in the A-Sun when it comes to basketball.
Son.
Yeah, so hang on. Big South basketball. I'm doing this on the fly. Nothing like this for live radio. Okay, so Big South when
Did
it
not
comes.
foresee us going in this direction.
No, I didn't. Okay, so Big South does have basketball, and did Hampton move over? Well, no, wait a minute. Sports, basketball, checking, efforting. It's the beauty of live radio. Okay, so, all right, so Big South is Campbell. So Campbell, Charleston Southern, and Presbyterian, and Gardner-Webb. So 4 of the schools in Big South basketball are involved in Big South football. Kennesaw is elsewhere. Monmouth is elsewhere. Hampton and North Alabama are elsewhere. So there is an opportunity here, although it would take them to 9 and you'd have 8 conference games. So that would help you out. So if you're going to go FCS, to me, it's Big South.
Well, let me ask you this, and it's a hypothetical question.
Since we've gone down this road, go for it.
Do we perhaps see our first major football program to go under and fold?
Sure.
I mean, you're talking about an athletic department that's riddled with debt.
Yeah.
And the football program being the chief component of that, the chief contributor to it, if you will. And is this the program that's the first one that says we've spent more money than we could ever possibly take in, we're folded?
That could very well be the case. And it's going to have to be a financial decision for UConn. And then after that, then they drop to FCS and pretty much, well, I mean, if they have, as long as they're Title IX compliant, they could stay FBS. Yeah.
Yeah.
They could stay Division I.
Don't need the football team to stay to play in the top level of college basketball. I mean,
Right.
There's some 200 schools that play college basketball that don't compete at the same level in college football. So yeah, that's a possibility.
That's option 5. That's the 5th option. There's your black helicopter theory about black helicopter theory.
Because you're talking about a universe now where there are college football programs at this size left and right that are just hemorrhaging money.
Yeah.
That they don't have the revenue sources, anything like an Ohio State, a Georgia, an Alabama, Oklahoma, or any of those big power schools. But yet they've spent the last 5 years or so trying to spend and compete with them, and can't. They just have the revenue coming in to do it. So it could be that trickle of that little first drop to start the small flow of water of schools that get out of the football business because they can't afford to stay in the football business.
Yeah, and that's the larger question for me is you've got an $8.7 million deficit, an athletic department that runs at a $41 million deficit. And when do you hit the point of diminished returns? I think for me, that's the larger question in all of this.
In the picture, quite honestly, that's how that whole picture is starting to shape up really, really fast because football's out on an island now.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Nothing like a real optimistic thing to talk about here in the A block of the show. Anything else on your mind, UConn-esque, as we get into the discussion here for the A block?
No, I think we covered pretty much all the bases. We've got a whole bunch coming up in the B block. Lots of news, notes, nuggets, and things left unsaid.
What he said.
Yes. Tons of things to talk about. Lots short, not quite as extensively or as long as we talked about this.
When was the last time we talked 20 minutes about UConn football?
Never.
That's what I'm saying.
But I guess I should do the obligatory promos here, shouldn't I?
Yeah, since you're not going to be around for the B block, you go ahead and do the promo, and I'll come out of the bullpen if you missed anything.
Okay. Obviously, if you're watching us right now, you know where to find us on YouTube at OSG Sports, but that's the same place you can also find us on Facebook and on Twitter. We are the Online Sports Guys, the OSG Sports team. This is our video/audio podcast, The Review, where we talk college football. One of these several podcasts that we feature here on the OSG Sports Network. Several of which are college football related, several of which are other sports, including things like lacrosse, and some content from our folks up at barnburner.ca in Canada who hit everything that we're not able to hit, and that includes basketball, wrestling, all kinds of fun stuff there. Make sure you give them a listen because those guys put on some great shows, got a lot to talk about going on up there. And the podcasting networks, of course. We do everything through our host and our friends from Spreaker, but you can find us on iTunes. You can find us at the Google Play. You can find us at all the major podcasting websites. And last but certainly not least, it's the phone app. Yes,
True.
That's right. You heard me correct. The Online Sports Guys have a phone app. It's free. It's real quick, real easy to download for both your iPhone or your Android phone, whichever works best for you. John's showing you his on his Android phone.
Check.
And I'm trying to show you mine.
Yep, you got it. Upper corner, right there. Don't move. Right there.
On my iPhone.
There you go. Nicely done.
I've covered about 2 minutes worth of promos here, so I'll stop before I make everybody go to sleep.
Yeah.
Hit a break really quick, and when we come back, it's going to be Brother John, hopefully Brother Wilkie. They're going to be talking about everything else going on in the great big wide wonderful world of college football. We are the Online Sports Guys. Make sure you find us every and anywhere you could possibly think of. We will be right back in 2 minutes.
Everybody buckle up. Buckle up.
Let's go.
Buckle up.
Can we go to the store? Mom, can
Buckle
we get
up.
some ice cream?
Everybody, buckle up.
A lot goes on in the car, but you're in control. So only move when you hear the click that says they're buckled in. Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
If you want to scale a mountain, buy boots. If you want to turn your crush into something more, say hi. At Country Financial, we know protecting the things you love and preparing for tomorrow start with simple steps. So we help you take small steps today with insurance and financial services that can have a big impact on your family's future.
For all your home, auto, and life insurance needs, call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871.
Welcome back to the B Block, and as promised, it is from his own home studio with the fancy headphones and microphones. It is at Jay Wilkerson 16, and he is ready to go to pick up where we left off in the A Block.
Isn't this what radio is supposed to look like?
Well, but this is multimedia. This is YouTube channel, and this is you and I discussing things.
So I have a cheap lip mic and Beats headphones, and that doesn't qualify.
Oh, no, I'm sure it does. I mean, considering you see the mere extent of my microphonism.
Is it a word?
It is now.
Sounds like a dirty word.
Microphonism. Yeah, it's a disease that you don't want, I don't think, unless you're in our business. All right. A Block was obviously UConn. And at OSG, Phil and I had, I think, 5 separate ideas. And I want to get your feedback on A, the situation on the whole, and then B, the 5 ideas. And you can take them backwards or you can answer them however you wish. 5 options for UConn.
Okay.
1, another conference, probably the MAC. 2, dropping down to being a flat-out independent in the FBS. 3, going FCS. And I had mentioned the Big South Conference because that would give them an even number of teams or an even number of conference games. And it would also give you Monmouth as a dance partner, and not all of those schools are Big South basketball members, and so there's an in there as well. Then there was a 4th option that I can't remember off the top of my head, and then I think it was probably joining another conference in FBS, and then the 5th option was blowing the thing up entirely. What are your thoughts overall on what we're seeing out of Storrs, and of those 4.5 options that I just gave you from the A Block? Which one sits with you and why?
All right, I'm going to go with the options first.
Sure.
Because I'm going to pick none of the above.
Fair enough.
If you go MAC, I mean, come on, Randy Edsel did not come back to Storrs for this.
But it's an even number. They already have an even number of schools, and it would be difficult, and it would be for football only. And so jumping into a Conference USA, jumping into a MAC, gives them an odd number of schools. They would have to bring in another dance partner, and it would be for football only, and no one would be a fan of that in that incoming conference.
Exactly. And then the other options you've mentioned, blowing up, they're not going to blow up the program. They're not going to go 1AA or Big South or any of that stuff. If we're thinking out loud here, and if it's all craziness right now at UConn with the football program, I imagine their athletic director is making a phone call to John Swafford at the ACC.
Interesting.
Because UConn was trying to position themselves when the whole Big East breakup in football was happening, to position themselves and probably into an ACC membership. And as I recall, when Syracuse and Pitt came into the league, I think UConn was in that mix.
So was BC, and BC beat them out.
Well, BC was before that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the latest round when BC and Pitt, or when Pitt and Syracuse came in.
Right.
I think UConn was in the mix as well, more so for the basketball program. It was kind of an upgrade for the football program to keep them in the Power Five and see what they could do. But they just didn't have the cachet, I guess, to join the ACC. But I'm sure a phone call is going to be made, and seeing if the ACC would be interested in UConn joining, although
basketball.
I can't see that really realistically with basketball, but they want to go Big East. And it makes sense for them to go Big East.
Yeah.
Because their traditional rivalries are there. Connecticut is a basketball school.
Mm-hmm.
Gino Auriemma, it didn't affect his program much to go to the American, but it certainly affected the men's program. And the men's program wins national championships, at least they used to. So this is a purely basketball move. Obviously, if they went all in with the ACC, they would have Syracuse and BC more traditional, and they could play Duke and North Carolina. So it's really a tough spot for the football program at Connecticut. The Huskies have really last 10 years, I believe, have really struggled.
Yes.
Ever since Randy Edsall left the first time around to go to Maryland, as you recall, they came off their first BCS bowl game. And many people believe that Connecticut was on the upswing on the football wise, but that was thrown a wet blanket when Randy Edsall left, and they never been able to recapture that momentum. So, yeah, they're in a very tough spot here. And it's hard to see where conference would take them. It's almost as if independence is their best option right now.
And I just have 4 words to mention to you about the post-Randy Edsall era after he decided to check out. Paul Pasqualoni, Bob Diaco.
Yeah, it's just not good at all.
No.
But, I mean, now let's look at the American Conference and how this affects them as far as Connecticut leaving. I mean, as far as basketball, yeah, you've got a blue blood program that has really fallen on hard times. But they've got some cachet. Football wise, you're losing a member basically, and all the AAC has to do is maybe raid Conference USA for a member.
Yeah. Who do you think? What's your gut tell you?
My gut really doesn't tell me anything right now. My gut tells me that they're going to gauge the interest of 2 schools, Boise State and BYU, because I think they want to expand out west. I just don't see where it benefits BYU, because I think the Mountain West and the American are pretty much on the same level as far as the 2 big conferences in the group of 5. But does BYU, although they're negotiating with ESPN as far as their media rights, and we talked about it in our on the college football debrief about that aspect of the contract and how really it's kind of the bowl situation that's holding it up. But the AAC just signed a big deal with ESPN. Does that change things for BYU's perspective now that they see an opening in a conference that has a little bit of momentum right now? And could that, with the demise of either the Big, or if the Big 12 or Pac-12 kind of sink into oblivion, does the AAC have the stones to move up so in the Power 5 realm? They'd call themselves Power 6 anyway.
Oh yeah.
So it's an interesting thing that's going on. And does that, with Connecticut leaving and all the AAC and all sports, does that affect the ESPN contract they just signed a few months back, their new media rights deal? Does that affect that one too? So there's some questions there for the American Conference.
All right, so let's take a peek at this absence in the East, which gives them, and we're talking about the Americans, 6 in the West, and then you're looking at 5 in the East. Obviously, you're going to want 1 to dance with, and BYU might end up being that, if they want to be in bed with ESPN and they're already in their own contract, do they want to jeopardize their own finances in turn to be a part of a conference which would only net them $7 million a year in the new contract with ESPN, if my memory serves. Obviously, the easiest fix would be to slide Tulane to the east, and then you slide your Western partner into the west if you're looking at the American. But for me, that would be the only way that I could think about it if it's the American that you're looking at. If the American goes and raids Conference USA and brings in somebody, then that creates holes and all that kind of stuff. So I think that there are more questions when it comes to who would be the replacement for the American, where they would get it from, and then what does Conference USA do? And you get this bit of mini realignment that we would be seeing because of UConn going away.
Right. And, as we're thinking out loud here, because
we did that a lot in the first segment, trust me.
Is there a option that out of Conference USA for the American? Florida Atlantic would be the obvious choice because of Lane Kiffin and the media attention he would bring. But I'm also looking at the Sun Belt if you want to upgrade your football program.
Sure.
Because there's some really good football programs and traditional football programs in the Sun Belt. And, and Arkansas State kind of makes sense. They've been consistently good in the Power Five or in the Group of Five level. And I think a move for them to the American would make a lot of sense in all sports because I think they would upgrade their competition. I think there's a route there for the Sun Belt. But obviously the attention seems to be turning to Conference USA.
Well,
I think the obvious case would be Florida Atlantic.
In our sphere it is, but you open the Sun Belt up, but then once again you're going to get mini realignment anyway, because right now the Sun Belt is happy at 5-5. They've got 10 schools. So then let's say Arkansas State moves away, then the Sun Belt's going to want to poach somebody. And so I think that in these Go 5 schools, whoever decides to blink and figure something out, then I think that you're going to be looking at all of these schools who right now have positioned themselves with even-numbered teams, trying to figure out ways to probably steal from Peter so they can get back to their even numbers.
Yeah, and while I'm looking at it, Appalachian State would be also a pretty sexy choice too to raid. I mean, they're a brand name. They've done some incredible things as far as football, as far as beating Power 5 schools. That would be kind of a carrot that you could dangle in front of the American as well, as far as a competition standpoint. So really, when you compare what UConn's up against and what the American is up against, you kind of like the American's position right here, because yes, they would be losing a member with that's a traditional basketball power in men's and women's, and kind of really struggling in football. But you might gain if you're going to raid the Sun Belt and Appalachian State and Arkansas State that has some the last 10 years has built a brand, especially Appalachian State. Or you could always go with the Florida Atlantic option in the Conference USA, which has a head coach that's always in the news, and a program that's has played really well since Lane Kiffin's been there.
All right, quick hitters to finish up on the show this week. You wanted to start with Baker Mayfield and Sam Ehlinger and Oklahoma v. Texas, and you have somebody lobbing water balloons from the NFL ranks in this conversation.
Well, it's interesting to me. If anybody has been around the Oklahoma-Texas rivalry, and you know how I feel about that rivalry.
Yes.
This makes perfect sense to me. Not only that, but you've got two guys from rival high schools from Austin. So this thing has that sibling Texas high school rivalry, as well as the Oklahoma-Texas thing. So, and then you got a loudmouth quarterback like Baker Mayfield.
Yes, that's a good adjective, by the way. Yeah.
What? So, while this raises a lot of eyebrows to me, this is kind of what that rivalry is about. When back in the day, you had Barry Switzer mouthing off about Darrell Oil and his recruiting tactics at Texas, and this is kind of along the lines of what that rivalry is all about.
All right, other quick hitters. Did you know Steve Spurrier is getting into the restaurant business?
I didn't, but that's interesting.
What do you call the place?
I was going to say, is it going to be called Head Ball Coach?
Well, that's
Head Ball Coach's Lair or something like that.
That's what we got to figure out. There's going to be a press conference in Gainesville, Florida on Monday afternoon where he is going to get into what they are referring to as his new American casual dining concept. So I don't know, and maybe you're given a visor to help you eat or something when you walk in the door.
That would be a great touch right there, and of course you can't spell restaurant without UT.
Correct. So there's that one. I know that a topic that would take probably another show in and of itself would be Arizona launching the hostile workplace probe following sexual harassment claims against Wildcat football players during the Rich Rodriguez administration. Syracuse has unveiled new uniforms, and apparently they're looking like the Cleveland Browns.
Well, as you recall, back in the 70s, that's kind of what the Syracuse look was. They almost mocked the Cleveland Browns, but there's been a little bit of some of the alums and fans have wanted to get the orange back in the color scheme and on the football uniforms. They've been wearing the blue the last few years and wearing blue helmets every now and then too. They want to readopt the orange. So good for them. Be a good solid look for Syracuse. By the way, I want to go back to the Steve Spurrier restaurant proposal here.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think will be on the kids menu?
Oh no. That's a good question. I bet you, I can guarantee you, actually, I figured out a couple of things. You're probably going to have Dos Equis on tap.
Right.
And maybe instead of waitresses, you're given a headset to communicate with a centralized booth.
Can you throw it?
I figure if you don't get your order in time, if you don't get your order within 10 minutes of placing it, you get to take your headset off and throw it on the floor.
Can you imagine a Phil Fulmer or a Roy Goff?
Ray
Goff, thank you. Driving down the interstate.
Come on, bro.
Although he has his own restaurant.
Oh yeah, he has the Zalids all over the place apparently.
Yeah, but probably a bad analogy. But I'm gonna go with Phil Fulmer then. Driving down the interstate, looking for a place to eat, and you see whatever Spurrier's restaurant's going to be called, and you're dying of hunger, and you just need to eat something. Does he pull over?
OBCs.
Does he?
No, of course not. He'll go to O'Charlie's or whoever the sponsor.
Zaxby's.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you want to do that if you're a UT coach? You want to go to some place that's figured out, but it's got a UGA coach and quarterback as a part of the ownership groups?
That's true. That's true.
Let's see. A couple of odds and ends. Georgia's dismissed wide receiver Jeremiah Holloman, admits an investigation for assault. Florida Atlantic has reinstated QB Chris Robeson from suspension after sexual battery accusations. And we knew that LSU was in trouble when it came to the basketball program. Now, apparently and allegedly, according to the Baton Rouge Business Report, a gentleman by the name of John Paul Thunis pleaded guilty to embezzling anywhere between $500,000 and $800,000 from a local charity, Our Lady of the Lake Foundation, but apparently directed close to $180,000 to the father of former Tigers offensive lineman Vidal Alexander.
Keep tradition alive in Baton Rouge.
Senior Associate AD Robert Munson, in a statement, LSU was made aware of specific allegations by OLOL officials that acronym there is too much to touch. I really, OLOL, I could touch that one, but I'm not going to.
Smart move.
Specific allegations by OLOL officials late 2018 made that information immediately available to the NCAA. As this is an ongoing inquiry, LSU will have what, Wilkie? No further comment.
Are you shocked?
No, not a bit. Let's see. What else was on your list as I scanned quickly from the week that was?
My list is complete.
Oh, North Carolina State Legislature has approved a bill to allow alcohol sales at games.
Well, they're just following the trend.
And I can't say that I'm surprised. Let's see. A study shows that West Virginia football generated over $223 million for state coffers last year in a financial impact study. And we were talking about revenue. Michigan, according to Brian Fisher at College Football Talk, Michigan made their annual budget presentation to the Board of Regents, and they expect to receive, according to the Detroit News, $56 million in Big Ten conference disbursements, an increase of from 52.1 and 36.3 in 2017. And the increased funding is a large part because of the move to multiple television partners and deal with ESPN, ABC, and FOX.
So that's for 2019.
Yeah, that's what they're anticipating.
Wow, the rich get richer, but the Big Ten and the SEC are just printing money.
Yeah.
The other three, and we're going to see how the ACC network is going to, as far as revenue distribution, whether it's going to be any kind of a factor when they launch on August 20th.
Yes.
Excellent plug. Yes, but those two conferences, Big Ten, SEC. I mean, they're printing money right now. They are on easy street.
Pac-12 and ACC distributed $29.5 million to each of their institutions last year. Take your left hand and put it directly over your head. For those watching in the video section. Okay, bring it forward. There you go, right there.
Too much backlight?
Well, no, now people can actually see what your head looks like.
Oh, I gotcha.
You did have the halo working here through the segment, so I just wanted to make sure people could see what you looked like there in the office.
I think the ceiling fan's a nice touch too.
Oh, I think so. Well, I can't tell. Oh, the ceiling fan. Okay, I didn't see it that it wasn't moving, but I do in fact see it right now. All right, subtle plug time. SeatGiant.com. Use the code SDH at checkout for anything that you're getting, not just for sporting events, but anything else across the board. And it helps out the network when it comes to doing stuff. So if you're looking for college football tickets, go to SeatGiant.com. Use the code SDH at checkout. Any clue what you're doing midweek for the debrief?
Well, we're planning on starting a series of podcasts on college football programs that have hit some hard times, but trying to get on the rebound. And we're hoping to lead off with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Rumor has it, Twitter and Anthony is back from vacation.
Wow, and having to do other sports, not college football?
I don't know. I think he's got some time. We may have to bring him on board and talk a little Nebraska football.
Yeah, for real. I mean, let's have him talk Nebraska football with you. All right, so let's see. Expect that midweek, dropping probably Thursday when it comes to the college football content. Let's see. Let me see if I can get the promo right in a very short period of time.
You're on the clock.
Yes, the onlinesportsguys.com for all of the op-eds fit to print. So as Wilkie continues to hydrate, which is important this time of year. And usually at OSG, Phil is the one that will write those commentaries. So go there. Any other news, any other things that go on, you can catch the show here. You can catch the show on our YouTube channel. You can catch the show at theonlinesportsguys.com. Like, friend, be a part of the conversation on our Facebook page at OSG Sports, on Twitter at OSG Sports. He's at JWilkerson16. I'm at OSG Nelson. Phil's at OSG Phil. It's also OSG Sports, and AP_Goldman85 is helping out on the midweek with the debrief when he's not doing other things and is going on vacation and doing other things like that. All right. Oh, don't forget to download the OSG Sports app available on iOS and Android. I'm doing the blatant plug on the video side to see if I can dial it up. There it is right there, and the OSG on the Android side right there. So don't forget to download the OSG Sports app and the Soccer Down Here app as well. Bunch of different ways that you can interact. And to your left, to your left, to your left, to your left, to your left. There you go. Bring it to your left. Okay, there it is. All right, there. See, there's the OSG Sports app. Now it's focused right there. BYU starts college football's talking season and World Cup dates and all the other things. Okay, so that's the OSG Sports app. And your lens finally recovered from that close-up of the phone. So that's a good thing. Did I forget anybody else? Facebook, Twitter, us,
no.
Website, app,
no,
Seat Giant. I think I got everybody.
You paid the bills, and all I can say is brush up on your Nebraska knowledge just in case.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see. So I will let you know of my production schedule midweek, and then we can figure something out on Wednesday afternoon. So we're going to put a bow on the show. Thanks for hanging out with us as always. He's at Jay Wilkerson 16, and I'm at OSG Nelson. So for him, for Brother Phil, for Brother Anthony, Brother J-Dub, all of us here at OSG Sports, have a good week, everybody. We will see you midweek as Jay Wilkerson 16 waves us goodbye.
Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
German? Forget it, he's rolling.
And it ain't